Hi, I'm Deidre Smith. Thank you all so much for being here. I know how important everybody's time is. I don't know, a lot of you are new, but a lot of you were here in 2014 when Gene Higginbotham and I reached out to the stakeholders in Kansas to brief them about the importance of waterborne commerce and what the agriculture community ships on the McClellan-Kerr, Arkansas River, instead of Arkansas River, on our system. He and I, as representatives for the states of Oklahoma and Arkansas, went to Washington, D.C. to talk to your congressional delegation about the importance and the tonnage that's moved. We were also trying to get our corridor designation for the Marine Highway M40, and we needed them to sign off with Oklahoma and Arkansas senators and representatives. And at that time, when we were talking to them, we realized that they understood that it was important, but they really wanted to hear that from their constituents. So Gene and I put a meeting together. We reached out to the Kansas Farm Bureau, and they've been great to work with and have really become great partners with us. And this group has just continually grown, and we really appreciate you all being here. But they wanted to hear from their constituents, so we wanted to educate and bring you guys on board with our stakeholders and talk about why it's important to you all and how much tonnage. I don't know if you guys realize this, or some of you may not remember, but about 65% of the total tonnage that's moved on the Oklahoma segment of the MKARNS is actually coming in or out of Kansas. So you guys utilize it a lot, even though the river doesn't come into the state of Kansas. You guys actually utilize it almost as much, if not more, than Oklahoma does. So that's why we wanted to bring you guys in, get your congressional support on different initiatives. We need to make sure that we make you knowledgeable about the conditions of the river system and gain or garner congressional support as well. Since that time, I've moved into the role of the Arkansas Waterways Commission Director, and Thaddeus Babb took my role in Oklahoma as the Waterways Manager at ODOT. So he will be your primary contact in bringing this group together, because a lot of people have a hard time making that leap from Kansas to Arkansas, and so Oklahoma, since it's the neighbor, usually is the point of contact. But I think it's very important to keep building this rapport and this relationship. And I know a lot of you were able to come to our barge ride that we had last year, and I think it was very successful. We had a lot of leaders from industry from Oklahoma and Kansas and their counterparts talk about how important it is to their industry and their business, and kind of meet each other so that you can make those contacts as well. We're hoping to do this again next year. Steve Taylor and Thaddeus and I rode together, and we were talking about when we should, okay, let's not, yeah. About doing that again. We hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I know it's kind of a long trip for you all, but we're hoping to do another barge ride possibly in October, and he came up with a fantastic idea because they have a pig out every year. Do a great job. There's probably, how many, 400 people? 300 to 500 people that show up. So you can meet a lot of people from either, even other states. We've got Rosedale, Mississippi people come up, Arkansas come up, so you can meet a lot of other stakeholders and kind of build the rapport with them as well. But we're hoping to do that in October next year, so it's a little bit cooler on the system. It was pretty hot in May last year whenever we had that, but I think it was pretty successful. But we want to keep building that relationship so that we can garner that support, because it's so necessary in DC. And it helps us if we have 3 states that are going together for our primary purposes and what we're trying to get accomplished, instead of just 2. One of the priorities that we have been talking about over the past 3 or 4 years is the Three Rivers area. The Three Rivers area is at the base of the navigation system. And originally they dug a post canal to shorten the distance because the Arkansas River will wind a lot, so they shortened it going directly to the White River before it goes to the Mississippi. And since that time, those rivers during high water events tried to rejoin. And so it's caused a lot of problems there, and we could actually lose navigation if the water gets too high and backs up into the Mississippi. And the past 20 years, they've spent about $1 million putting Band-Aid fixes on there. So we went to Congress. We went and talked to the Corps of Engineers up at the headquarters in DC. And we were able to get $1.5 million out of the president's budget to go towards a cost share with the state of Arkansas for the other 1.5 for a feasibility study. And the video that I'm about to show you was recently made. It actually has Gene. You guys will remember Gene whenever you see his picture. I happened to be in DC at the time that they were coming down for one day to videotape it for this. They're putting the video together to go with the chief's report for this feasibility study fix. And so that video goes with the proposed chief's report to General Simonite for signature so that we can get a new start. So right down there at the bottom is where the link is to the video. It's on the left-hand side of that Three Rivers feasibility study area. But I actually put the proposed report in here. We've got till July 31st, the state of Arkansas and other federal agencies to actually submit any comments before it's signed. I think August 15th is whenever the proposed signature is supposed to be. Can you copy and paste it into the internet? Maybe.
I would like everybody to understand the severity of this breach. Again, where the White River, which we use for navigation, is trying to breach back over to the old Arkansas River channel. And if we get high flood events coming down the White River, it'll finally dig that out, and the water will pour out of the navigation channel that we use for navigation over into the Arkansas River and run out. So that means the first 10 miles you'll have a creek bottom with 2 foot of water in it, and you can't get off Mississippi to the first lock and dam. If that happens, we'll be out of business for as much until the Corps gets it in their budget to put it back in. And I can't tell you what's going to happen to Gary Beechner's grain business at all. And it'd be a
Well, and I think part of the concern too, I think after they finally get the funding, it could be 6 months to a year before the fix is actually implemented. And we're concerned that a lot of those commodities will find other modes of transport and then they won't come back to the river. We need to keep it reliable so that everybody can depend on it.
At the request of the Arkansas Waterways Commission and the state of Arkansas, and under authority of Section 216 of the Flood Control Act of 1970, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is conducting the Three Rivers Southeast Arkansas Feasibility Study, or better known as the Three Rivers Study. The study is to recommend modifications to the McClellan-Kerr Arkansas River Navigation System, or MKARNS, that will ensure the long-term sustainability of reliable navigation on the system. Specifically, the Three Rivers study is focused on 208 square miles, where the White, Arkansas, and Mississippi rivers all meet in southeast Arkansas. This area is known to be extremely dynamic, especially during high water events. Approximately 64 square miles of the study area is owned and operated by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Other landowners in the area include the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, the Corps, Anderson-Tully Lumber Company, and several private hunting clubs. The term study area is the area large enough to capture potential indirect and long-term environmental impacts of alternative implementation, particularly impacts that may occur further upstream or downstream of the immediate project footprint due to changes in hydrology. The term project area is a much smaller area and consists of the isthmus between the Arkansas and White Rivers. This is the area most likely to experience a breach or a cutoff forming between the two rivers.
My name is Gene Higginbotham. I'm the former executive director of the Arkansas Waterways Commission. I could just see the potential of the river shutting down for over a year. When you looked historically back to about 2000, you could see changes in the way the White River was flooding in conjunction with the way the Arkansas was. And I could see the potential to lose the navigation channel. It's about $1.5 billion worth of economic development just for the state, about 11 million tons of freight moving up and down the system. That particular area is the access point to the Mississippi. So if you have a failure there, you lose a navigation channel, and basically no freight moves from the Mississippi up to any Arkansas ports or Oklahoma ports.
The risk of a cutoff forming is caused by water elevation differences, or head differentials, that occur when one or both of the White or Arkansas rivers are above their bank during a high water event. When one or both rivers are out of bank, floodwaters flow overland, cross the isthmus along several paths of least resistance. As floodwaters move overland, the ground surface erodes as the head cutting process takes place. Eventually, a new water course, or cutoff, would form, redirecting part or all of one river's flow to the other river, particularly if an existing head-cut containment structure failed or breached during a high water event. To prevent formation of a cutoff, the Corps has constructed a multi-component soil cement system over the course of many years. This soil cement system consists of three primary structures. First, the historic cutoff closure structure. Second, the Melinda structure. And third, a linear soil cement dike structure running east to west across the isthmus along the south side of the White River, including the Owens Lake structure. By 1989, the Corps has spent about $23 million on these and other containment structures in the project area, averaging $522,000 per year. In the absence of the Three Rivers Project, operations, maintenance, repair, replacement, and rehabilitation costs for existing containment structures will be significant and continue on, and the Corps will have to build similar small-scale ad hoc structures in other areas where head cuts are migrating and forming. If a cutoff formed, navigation through the project area would cease for extended periods until the Corps could mobilize a contingency plan and repair or close the cutoff, which would take at minimum 6 months. During the closure, most shippers would have to find alternative overland routes at much higher costs. In addition, sediment deposition would increase dredging requirements, and an estimated 200 acres of bottomland hardwood forest in the path of a cutoff would be destroyed as land converted to open water. The recommended Three Rivers project consists of 4 construction components: a new containment structure at an elevation of 157 feet, a relief channel through the historic cutoff, removal of the existing Melinda structure, and opening the Owens Lake structure between Owens Lake and the White River. The new containment structure would be approximately 2.5 miles long, beginning on natural high ground south and west of the Melinda structure. Taking advantage of natural high ground, the structure would only rise 5 to 7 feet above the ground in most locations and would be no more than 12 feet above the ground at its highest point. Opening the historic cutoff would reduce maximum head differentials, allowing the Corps to better control the location of future overtopping events, and would decrease erosion across the isthmus. Removing the Melinda structure would reconnect Owens Lake to its former southern limb, thereby returning open water ecosystem functions to the oxbow portion of the flooded bottomland hardwood forest. Finally, opening the Owens Lake structure between Owens Lake and the White River would prevent water from backing up into Owens Lake. The opening's design would also provide a fish passage into Owens Lake. Implementation of the Three River project would not alter hydrology in surrounding bottomland hardwood forests, and most importantly, navigation would continue with no operational changes to the MKARNS. Cumulative impacts for all resources have been determined to be less than significant or non-existent. Significant resource agency coordination occurred throughout the Three Rivers study, leading to all resource agencies supporting the Three Rivers project. The Corps intends to submit a chief's report summarizing the Three Rivers project to Congress for project implementation, authorization, and appropriation at the conclusion of the feasibility phase.
They're going to have a new containment structure that's built at 157 feet. They're going to take out the existing Melinda structure. They're going to have a relief channel going through the historic cutoff, and then they're going to rejoin Owens Lake between Owens Lake and the White River. If you want to go to the next screen, some of this might be easier to see. Oh, I've got the clicker, sorry. You want to do this for me? Because I didn't. Thank you. That's one of the, back in 1991, that shows some of the damage that had occurred whenever we had a high flow event, and it did a lot of damage. So they were able to go out there and take some pictures before they corrected it. The implementation of the Three Rivers project is not going to alter hydrology. There's a lot of bottomland forest area down there, and it preserves that. And there's no operational changes that will occur to navigation once that is fixed. So whenever I was talking about the containment structure, here we go. Does that work? Okay, nothing's going to work with me with technology. The 157-foot elevation, the Melinda structure, they're going to remove that Melinda weir that is right there. And there's actually a sinkhole in front of it, so they're going to push that down into that sinkhole. Then that relief channel down at the bottom is going to be new because it used to have a containment structure there. And then they're going to join Owens Lake that's up above with the White River to allow the fish to go back and forth. So there is a environmental piece that goes with this study. So everybody has signed off on it with Fish and Wildlife, Natural Resources, and a lot of the federal agencies. We're going through the NEPA process right now, so we're almost done. The estimated cost of the project is $180 million. It is a cost share of 50-50 between the Inland Waterway Trust Fund and the General Treasury. And it has a 4.4 to 1 cost-benefit ratio. So there's a lot of information in that proposed chief's report too, if you want to read it later. I'm not going to take up everybody's time going through a lot of this, but I just wanted you all to be aware that that feasibility study is, after 3 years, almost completed, and they do have a permanent fix that they are presenting to Congress. Okay, so if you want to go to the next screen, we're going to talk about the 12-foot channel. This is an initiative that I think we've been working on since 2005 is when it was actually authorized for, or 2004, I guess, sorry. When it was authorized for a 12-foot channel, but Congress didn't ever really appropriate the total amount that was needed to do the whole 12-foot channel. There is a lot of disagreement between the stakeholders and the Corps of Engineers about the appropriated funds that were originally given. And inside your packet, there's a lot of information in here. This was something I submitted to Senator Bozeman's office for an appropriations request, and it has information about the 12-foot channel. But whenever, there's also language in there about whether or not the funds were appropriated for a new start. And the new start is very important because that's how we get money from the Inland Waterway Trust Fund. The Corps of Engineers is saying that they never had a new start, but there's actually documentation in here that talks about when that was submitted, when the funds were appropriated. And the Corps is saying it was used for O&M funds, not for new construction. But we actually have something from the Little Rock District on this issue paper that shows where those funds were actually expended. So we're trying to get language in the new WRDA bill that stipulates that that was a new start. We shouldn't have to try to get a new start again so that we can move forward. There is a lot of interest between the governors in Oklahoma and Arkansas to get this 12-foot channel dug. So we're working really hard trying to get that. We've got a lobbying group that has actually been hired by a coalition between Oklahoma and Arkansas to try to get that completed and get it moving forward. Barge transportation is the most cost-effective way to ship things, and it's going to be even more cost-effective once we get that 12-foot channel because you can move 43% more per barge. There's a chart in here that shows that as well, right here. So there's actually a transportation cost savings of $2.6 billion by doing that 12-foot channel. So part of the language that was also in there and part of the appropriation request that whenever the Corps did the 2005 study for the 12-foot channel, and the cost benefit ratio needs to be updated, the design needs to be updated, and the economics needs to be updated. So they have to do a new update of the study It's going to cost $450,000, could take up to 3 years. So I was trying to get the appropriations in there to try to get that study started. So I just wanted to make you guys aware that we are pushing that. There's also a letter or a submittal to the Trump administration that Governor Hutchinson in Arkansas presented whenever we were looking at infrastructure packages. So does anyone have any questions? I know you guys, we've got a lot of presentations, so I don't want to take up a whole lot of time, but
And on the
no.
cost of that, the cost savings of, again, how many tons on a barge and that?
There's 1,500 tons that currently can be moved per barge. We usually have a 12 barge tow. You've got 60 semis that are equivalent to one barge. So say you've got a 12 barge tow and you're moving 60 semis worth, you've got 720 semis you're taking off the surface transportation by water. That's why it's so cost effective to move those goods. And these are bulk items. They are not containerized shipping as well. So if you're moving 1,500 tons, I need to look at the chart because I don't have it memorized. Do you remember how many tons it is? Isn't it like 300 more tons?
300 to 400. So you're gonna go
tons
from
more.
1,500 tons to almost 1,900 tons. And the barge doesn't know the difference. You just have to have a deeper channel, and the towing costs are minimal from a 9-foot draft barge to a 12-foot draft. So you're gonna get almost 40% for minimal cost, and that puts the transportation factor way up, puts it on an even plane with the Mississippi River from New Orleans to St. Louis. So it's a great thing for Kansas ag and Kansas industry.
Yeah, the total cost, or the last estimate that we had for that was $200 million between Oklahoma and Arkansas. Now, Arkansas's got several more miles, but most of it's already at 12 foot. Oklahoma's, it's about 100 million per state. Oklahoma has a lot of rock on the channel, and so there's going to be a lot of blasting and a lot more construction that has to be done. And they've got fewer miles that cost about the same. So.
Could you explain the three priorities that we have that we agreed with Arkansas and Oklahoma in their order?
Absolutely. The top priority is this 3 rivers because it's so important. We could actually lose the navigation channel, so they made that the top priority for the system. The second is the critical backlog, and David's going to go over that in just a minute, tell you where we're at on that and what the major, fixes are that we're looking at doing over the next few years. And the last one is the 12-foot channel for the top 3 priorities.